everything seems okay. Just going to do a quick little biopsy on like a polyp. And I was like, okay, sure. She's like, how was your last pap? I'm like, perfect. Fine. Gotta go. Gotta pick up cupcakes. Called me Monday morning and asked me to come in.
Did you know? Oh my gosh, I have chills. Did you know in that moment?
I didn't. I didn't want to think that.
Of course not. If you guys are like me and wanting to be more mindful about what's in your products, how many toxins are in your products, and making sure that you're putting good things on your skin and into your body, I highly recommend Osea. I did a total revamp on all my products, and this is one I have been using and now is a staple in my bathroom. I particularly love their Ocean Eyes Age Defining Serum. I feel like I don't have bags under my eyes anymore, and I just feel really good putting this on my skin, knowing something good is going on my skin and into my body. So if you want to check out Osea's products, use our code QTCPOD10 to get 10% off your first purchase. Well, I'm so excited to welcome our next guest to Quiet the Clock. We have Tracy Weiss, who's the executive director of Chick Mission.
Hi.
I love you already. We've been talking for like 10 minutes off camera. I love your energy. I love your whole vibe. Like, it's so nice to have guests like that because it makes this really easy and really comfortable.
Well, you also create a great opportunity for real talk and authenticity. So
thank you.
I show up for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I certainly, of course, want to get into all things Chick Mission, but first I want to talk about you and your personal journey.
My favorite subject.
Yeah. And just kind of, your journey to where you are now. I think what's so incredible is that we have certain visions for our lives, and then things happen that change the course of our lives, and then we end up somewhere maybe we never imagined. So I'd love for our audience to hear more about you.
Yeah, I think that what you said is exactly right. I don't know where I got this idea, but I believe that life was a series of stepping stones, and you kept building, and it was very linear.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to feel not anxiety, but almost worried about, would I find the right stepping stone? Would I go in the right direction? And then I realized what life looks like is chaos. And you take 17 steps forward and 4 back. And so I'm from the Midwest, never really traveled, went to New York City once and decided to move here.
Really? What was that like for you, that culture shock from the...
It actually felt more solidly me than any place I'd ever been.
Oh my gosh, that's
I grew
amazing.
up in a suburb, jumping behind wheels of cars and coffee shops and strip malls and access to beautiful nature. But I am someone who thrives on energy of the city, making the entire island of Manhattan your living room. Because you never know what kind of experiences and energy you're going to absorb. So I moved here to work in television.
Mm-hmm.
I worked actually in talk TV for quite some time, moved over to talent management, and really saw myself on those stepping stones, building a career in media, making a name for myself, creating opportunities for clients of mine to do what they were passionate about. And then I was diagnosed with cancer, 30 years old, a newlywed at the time, I had no idea.
How did you, I'm curious. Well, I have one question first. Like, it was that when you realized sort of the linear path was not really what life actually is? I mean, we talk so much on here about societal timelines and milestones and at what age we're supposed to do what, and we're sold this narrative if it's like, it is linear.
Yeah.
So was the cancer diagnosis the moment you realized like, life is not linear at all?
I overuse the term reshuffling the deck. And that is what that experience did. It allowed me to see that even if it's 52 card pickup and the cards are just everywhere, you pick one up a day at a time and figure it out as you go. And I'm a planner and it's hard for me. I actually schedule time to be spontaneous. But that cancer diagnosis, right after I hit some of those milestones, career, check, cute guy, marriage, check, living in a city I loved, had wonderful friends, check, and then the cards fell down. And you figure out a way forward, even if it looks completely different than you'd ever could imagine it would.
I think that's what's so amazing about hard life experiences like that, like it shows us how resilient we are. I think it helps us sort of reprioritize what actually is important. And we've had so many amazing, incredible women on here that are just so resilient. And when life hands you a shitty deck, we kind of find ways to like reshuffle, pick it back up, and create a new vision.
And make something new out of it.
Yeah.
It's like the very beautiful Japanese pottery that is glued back together with gold, and it's valued for the sum of its broken parts. It's more beautiful in its
I love that.
reincarnation. And when you say resilience, I wish that I could erase the word brave from any female journey, because you don't choose to be brave. You're resilient.
Yeah.
You handle what is handed to you. You take that shit sandwich and you make a dinner for someone else. That's gross, but whatever it is, you find a way. I'm someone who uses everything in my refrigerator before I buy new food, because there's always ways to relook at a situation and find out what's really for you. Yeah. Both culinarily in your fridge and in your life as you age.
I love that perspective. And that's the message we're trying to push forward here with Quiet the Clock, is that, it's not linear. And if we change our perspective on things, like life can actually be chaotic and fun and spontaneous and exciting. But when we're looking at through this lens of like checking the boxes, straight line through life, it gets really like stressful.
And even the analogy of the clock, tick, 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 tick. You're supposed to keep going. Yeah. What does time mean? What does age mean? What does the cadence mean? And I think that anyone who has been through some very difficult moments will tell you that life is not a metronome. It is not tick, tick, tick. And you can be 47 and going to the club with your 22-year-old friends, or you can be a mom at 25 years old and have a very serious static life. But the clock doesn't say. Yeah. You do.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much. I love that. So you have this diagnosis at 30. How did they come to diagnose that? Were you not feeling well?
Because the television lifestyle, you work hard, you play hard, and I was always tired. They thought I had mono in 2017, and okay, sure. I had cervical cancer. It started in my uterus and grew completely through my cervix before it was discovered. I had a PAP every year for 15 years. No negative, nothing abnormal. And I started to have some pretty serious bleeding, just randomly off cycle. And it got to the point where I went to my doctor and said, something is wrong. And she said, I'll never forget, I don't see anything. I think you're over exaggerating your bleeding, perhaps being hysterical.
What?
She used the term hysterical.
Oh my gosh.
I was raised, doctors are experts.
Totally.
It's part of the linear track. You trust people who are experts in what they do, because I know a lot about a lot of things, but the female anatomy and cancer was not one of them. Now I could probably pass the boards.
I bet.
But I just kept on trucking, and about 6 months later, I had a bleeding episode at work, single cell bathroom, a lot of men that I would work with, and people are pounding on the door.
Oh my God.
And I can't get up. So I'm texting my friend, and she said, you need a new doctor. You have an appointment with mine at 2 p.m.
Oh my God, I just got chills everywhere. Amazing.
And I said, I don't have time. I have a birthday party to throw tonight. I have a client this, I have a client that. And she goes, you have all the time in the world because you can't leave the bathroom. So I went down on my BlackBerry media mogul, doing deals from the stirrups. And her name is Danielle Feldman, Dr. Feldman. And she was like, everything seems okay. Just going to do a quick little biopsy on like a polyp. And I was like, okay, sure. She's like, how was your last PAP? I'm like, perfect. Fine. Gotta go. Gotta pick up cupcakes. Called me Monday morning and asked me to come in.
Did you know? Oh my gosh, I have chills. Did you know in that moment?
I didn't. I didn't want to think that.
Of course not.
I actually thought I might be pregnant. Not because I wanted to be, or that I could be, or I just had this like moment. And it was the first time I actually really considered if I wanted children or not. My ex and I had talked about it. I'm not married anymore. Had talked about it extremely, lightheartedly for a someday moment. And of course, when you're 30, you are forever young and invincible. Mm-hmm. And I said, would they call me to come in if I were pregnant? Would they call me in if my partner was cheating and I had some kind of disease?
Oh.
This is literally where I went
all these
first.
things are going through your head.
There's no cancer in my family. Actually, that's not true. The family who lives in Florida had some melanoma, but I'm sure that's a little bit of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Never. No cancer. Didn't really even think about it. And because I had abnormal tests for 15 years, you don't live in fear, or I didn't, that one day I would hear differently. No. So when I went in and Dr. Feldman let me know that it was cancer, we weren't sure kind of where it was and how it was. But the good news was it's slow moving and we have time to address it. And the first thing I said was, can I go home and have a baby first? And I shocked myself. I actually don't tell this story very often because
I appreciate you sharing it here with us.
I shocked myself.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I wanted to be a mother. And of course, as soon as I hear I might not be able to be against my own choice and belief system, I saw what this little girl looked like in my head. I saw what I put her in, and obviously Doc Martens in a black tutu. I had a name in my head, and that actually scared me more than you have cancer.
Wow. Oh my gosh, there's so much you just said that I want to get to there. And I think one thing now that we're talking about this thought you have after getting this diagnosis is, normalizing not knowing if you want children. We've had so many women on here, and I've worked as a therapist, I've worked with so many clients, female clients, that it just feel this judgment of self because they don't know whether or not they want children.
And it's more than judgment of self. It's also, I hate to say societal norms. My dad is a great guy, loving, really, really, really special man. One time when I told him I didn't know if I wanted children, he said, well, then what are we here for? And I said, as a woman? He's like, no, as human beings. And I'm like, okay, Dad. But I understand his perspective as a 70-year-old man now.
Yes.
What it looked like for generations to build on the foundation of their success and their work to keep, families moving and society birthright forward. Mm-hmm. But as a single individual woman to say, I'm not sure, I don't want, or my life is very happy as a childless adult woman.
Yes.
I mean, we don't have to go down the politics road, but we've been told very recently that we are useless to society, which given my role at the Chick Mission makes me laugh because I'm the busiest, useless woman with no use for the future that I know.
I know. I think there's a lot of trailblazing to be done, there where we can normalize the choice not to, and that we don't make womanhood synonymous with motherhood. And there are some incredible women doing incredible things that are making that choice. And whether you make the choice or not, or you're undecided in the choice, it's okay. I think we need to say that that's okay.
Of course. And the other side of the coin is even more important for people to hear. If someone's saying that they're not sure they want children is against your own ideology, the answer isn't, well, you'll change your mind. I did. The answer is, that's so wonderful that you know what you want for your life.
Yes.
So if you did want children, or you do want children, or you think that all women should be barefoot and pregnant, that's cool. But that's for you to decide, for your family to decide, for you and your partner to decide. And to put your own experience and choices on another woman is something that I honestly believe the younger generation is starting to do better than, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 45.
43.
Yeah. So I feel like I have all these new friends that are 32 because, we're all single in the city together. And they don't do that. They don't do that to each other.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think that I see the same thing happening, and we're having, younger women listening to this podcast, which is so hopeful because I want this message trickled down. I want women to not experience the pressure of the time, the pressure of the societal expectations.
I met my partner at 34. By all standards, that was so late in the game. All my friends had kids and houses and all this stuff. And I felt really shitty about that. And, now some of my friends are divorced and I'm in a 9-year relationship. And I think that, I'm happy to hear and to see that younger women are just having different experiences and getting to live their life, enjoy where they are.
How do you make these decisions about what you want the next 50 years of your life to look like at 25 years old? But at 25 years old, I knew everything. Mm-hmm. I was a grown-ass woman, and I dare you to tell me differently.
I know.
And I think that when I look at the commonality between women anywhere, trad wives, work sharks, hippie moms, childless by choice, widowed, what everyone has in common as we move forward to the future is taking the information we have and creating a new data set of what we need to move forward.
Yes.
Which is why, from a Chick Mission standpoint, what we do is we help women with cancer freeze their eggs before they go through treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to get to all things.
Yeah, I was going to say, just in general, that moment, the reason it resonates to me and the reason I got involved with the organization on day 2 is because cancer doesn't get to decide if you want children. Your bank account shouldn't really get to decide. What should decide are your morals, your code, your experience, you. And if you decide not to do that, that's okay. And if you decide to do that and it doesn't work, that's okay. But either you're making the choice.
Yes.
And that's really what I was talking about in terms of the data point and the relation between, Chick Mission's obviously the most important thing, but I think
but I could talk to you about you all day.
I know. I was going to say, I love talking about me. No, but that's because much like so many of your guests and your experiences, when you have this knowledge, that's my favorite thing about, I don't know if you've been a lot on Instagram and seen these really adorable memes about age gap friends.
Oh, friendship has been something huge on my mind lately.
Yeah, I have so many ideas for segments.
Okay.
But I'll be back. But I just think the fact that, women for decades shared parenting, helped each other through relationship moments, even, career connecting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we're able to see now, that there is no clock in a way, that if you are 45 or you're 31 and you are a similar life stage, you can learn from the experiences.
Totally.
And I can learn to not be so jaded and see things through your 30-year-old eyes.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see things differently in your life than just because I've lived it. It's get off my lawn. It's not like that.
Yeah, I think that's the whole message is just being open to other perspectives and open and curious about other lenses and curious to learn. I have a very similar experience where, in my early 30s, I got out of a 5-year relationship. I'll share part about that relationship later, but, and I was bartending in New York City and all my friends were in serious relationships, getting engaged, getting married, et cetera. And here I now found myself single at 30, 31.
And you live in a different world. Yeah. You are a night walker. And your hours at work don't look anything, and your life looks nothing.
I couldn't relate anymore. No. I couldn't relate.
You're one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when all of my friends had children and partners, and I did not.
So I am so grateful for the bar experience because I'm still friends with so many people that I worked with, but it gave me this whole different life and social life. And I was 30-something hanging out with 22, 23-year-olds, but we were all in the same place.
Exactly right. Yeah. And you saw things in their lives that perhaps you wanted to adapt into your own future, and certainly vice versa. Yeah. I'm sure you were the boy or partner advice maven.
Oh my God, I was the mama to everybody. I could still remember endless conversations with some of the younger girls, and I just loved playing that role for them.
Well, we see why.
Thank you. So, just to circle back, so you have this diagnosis. What was life like from there for you? So, you have this thought about children.
Yeah, I have this thought about children. I'm diagnosed. And then you kind of lose control of the timeline. You go to doctors who tell you to do treatments, who tell you to have surgeries, who talk to you about percentages and numbers, and it's a completely different language. And you are trying to figure out how to translate it into your own life. Also how to actively make your own decisions, but also you're so overwhelmed with fear of your own mortality, of losing your job, disappointing your partner, losing pieces of your identity. And you can't even really focus on anything other than today I'm waking up, I have a scan, I'm doing this. And I had probably 2 months of, surgeries and little biopsies to figure out where the cancer was, where it wasn't. And in that time, despite facing radiation and a hysterectomy likely, no one really talked about fertility. But I will say this. This was in 2009.
Yeah.
I'm not making excuses for the universe, but I think that I'm proud of the difference in the last almost 15 years.
Yes.
That this conversation about oncofertility is more part of the lexicon. So someone mentioned it right before I was supposed to have my surgery. It was actually my surgeon, which surgeon oncologists aren't really worried about your quality of life. I don't mean that unkindly.
Yeah.
They're worried about saving your life.
Right.
And then the rest can be kind of shook out later.
Yeah.
But he mentioned, are you going to do this? And it seems crazy given what everyone knows now at age 30. But I said, well, can't I do that later? He's like, not if I put your ovaries on your ribs and radiate you. And I was like, well, can't we do that if we figure out if the cancer spread? He's like, no, girl, once you're open, it's a 9-hour surgery and we do it. We do as much as we have to.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I guess I better freeze my eggs. But for me, it wasn't about that little girl in my brain. It was something to check off my list before I went on to the big show. It was responsible tailgating as far as I was concerned. So I called my insurance company and said, hey, I'm having this surgery. I'm like, will I even be a woman after this? You're like out of your mind with all these thoughts. But the main thought of my mind was, I don't want to pay $15,000 to freeze my eggs when I didn't choose to have a tumor. And they were like, that's great because it's elective. And I said, wait, I just want to make sure. And please remember, at this point, I'm a television agent. Like I can negotiate myself out of, Guantanamo Bay probably. And I'm like, I just want to make sure I understand. So if I broke my arm, you would give me a cast, an x-ray, painkillers, have me come back in, do physical therapy. And they're like, yes. I'm like, and that's all covered. And they said, yes. So I said, oh, the treatment I'm having for the disease I didn't choose will render me infertile and you're not going to help me fix that. And they said, no. Well, what I did was, luckily, because I was able to, threw it on a credit card.
Yeah.
And moved on with my life.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I didn't once really think about women who couldn't do that, who don't have access to the care, who don't have, equity on their credit card, maximum line.
Yeah.
Because I was so focused on doing this thing and finding out what the rest of my cancer treatment looked like. For me at the time, it was like a shitty afterthought.
Yeah.
I wasn't even fully grateful for it.
Well,
I don't know that I've ever said that out loud, actually.
Yeah.
But funny enough, my perspective changed a lot. I'm feeling really sorry for myself. I'm going to probably need to use a surrogate. Where am I going to find that money? Will my husband leave me if I can't have kids? All this crazy stuff. And there was a fellow at NYU where I was being treated who out of nowhere was looking at, imaging and goes, holy crap, you have the ovaries of a 15-year-old. You wouldn't have had any trouble getting pregnant. And at first I was like, is that mean? And then I was like, no, she validated me in this weird way that if life had gone stepping stone wise and I had other decisions and other choices, my body did work the way it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
And that doctor is actually on our medical board for the Chick Mission. And I did not see her from ovaries of a 15-year-old, 2009, until the Chick Mission began in November of 2017. The doctor sat down, 2009, 2017.
Oh my God.
And looked at me and goes, cervical cancer, ovaries of a 15-year-old. And I was like, who the fuck are you? Oh, can I swear?
You can swear.
And, okay, can I say who it is?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Dr. Notman, Jamie Notman.
Of course it is. We love her so much.
I will tell you, I don't know, I did not see her episode here with you, but she and I have now shared so many experiences that who knew that woman with a throwaway comment as a fellow that made me feel confident in my body that had just betrayed me. In kind of a bizarre, weird, backward way. We would see each other through quite a lot, including helping oncofertility patients.
Gosh, you see, that just makes me believe in the power of the universe, that things are aligned and meant to be. What an amazing story.
It's crazy. You know, the world is so small yet so big. Yeah. But the end of my cancer journey was I went to sleep hoping for a trachelectomy, which is, for those of you who don't know, just the removal of your cervix. They keep your uterus. You have a giant cerclage. It's kind of the path of least resistance in surgery. But my cancer was too advanced for that. Full hysterectomy, a whole bunch of lymph nodes, transposition of the ovaries ahead of radiation. And I had so many lymph nodes removed that the doctor felt okay that I didn't have to have radiation if I didn't want it. And I said, well, am I supposed to want it?
What kind of statement is that?
I think it was more about for my own anxiety. And of course, this is the way I remember it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not what he said.
Yeah.
But that is how I remember it. But the point that I always think about in terms of quieting the clock from a cancer lens, the amount of imposter syndrome you go through as a patient who didn't have chemo. Did I even have cancer? Is my story important?
Wow.
You know, just to add to the fuel. So we're now talking about a 30-year-old woman who doesn't know what she wants to be when she grows up, doesn't understand why the path isn't linear like she began, doesn't know if she wants kids, doesn't know if she's going to survive cancer, feels horrible for letting her friends, family, partner down and worrying everyone, leaving work suddenly her clients are left alone, financial issue with the egg process. And now, am I even a woman? Am I even grateful enough? Am I even a cancer patient?
Gosh.
And like the answer to all of that is yes, and therapy. But I just think that most people hear cancer or infertility. Everyone knows someone with one or the other.
Yes. Oh my
or
gosh.
both.
Yeah.
And everyone can relate to what either one of those things feel like. And you're like, bummer, that sucks. But it's hard to really imagine the pile-on of identity crisis after logistical crisis after, and that's the part of cancer that I actually am probably most passionate about speaking with our survivors about, because you're supposed to be, and I'm obviously jumping ahead as I always do. I'm always chapter 4 and we're on chapter 1, but that's part of the survivorship that a lot of people don't talk about. You're healed. Hooray. Ring the bell after chemo. You're in remission. Party.
Yeah.
And then you stop going for scans and you stop going for weekly, monthly appointments, and people stop showing up with edible arrangements, which are good because edible arrangements are terrible. But then you have to deal with all that other stuff.
Yeah.
You dealt with the cancer.
Yeah.
Then you have to, and it took me 7 years until I met a woman named Amanda Rice, who was a current cancer patient, actually. She had breast cancer, then diagnosed with melanoma, and had recurrence of breast. And I'm hooked up to meet her for lunch because she has an idea for a nonprofit that she wants to tell me about. I don't know this chick. I'm like, what does she want to check? I don't talk about cancer.
How did you go? Yeah, who connected the two?
The board president of the Chick Mission, her name is Lori Katz. She and Amanda have worked together in the financial industry for more years than probably either one would like to admit.
Okay.
Lori and I were acquainted. And, you know, most people didn't really know that I had cancer. And it was communicated to Lori, like, I don't know if you remember Tracy Weiss, you know, she did in fact have cancer. And she's like, oh, we got to set her up with Amanda. Talk about the universe. I walked into lunch with the two of them absolutely thinking that I was going to host a fundraiser or, you know, do an interview. I came out as the chief creative officer of the new founding board and jumped right in. And this is never talking about cancer with strangers, never saying out loud I was a cancer survivor. I had written a book that is in a drawer somewhere. It's basically my chick-lit cancer book. That's how I processed a lot of the feelings and, of course, the identity pile that we're talking about. But I was jumping in to volunteer for basically a startup company. None of us had ever been part of nonprofit life before. Amanda had read Nonprofits for Dummies in the chemo chair. And we just kind of showed up. Cancer survivors, supporters, women who lost their parents or friends or were in the medical field. And we came together as a bunch of neophytes.
Yes.
Not a single one of us with nonprofit background.
Yes.
And said, I don't really know so much about charity, but what I know about, and each of us know about, storytelling, which as the television producer was my bread and butter, and fundraising to solve a solvable problem. And we looked at each other and said, Oncofertility, freezing your eggs ahead of the treatment that only 50% of oncologists even tell you.
That's why I have my note cards, because I want to get to those stats.
Even tell you.
Yeah.
And if you're Black or brown, those percentages are less. So here we are, privileged white women in New York City who have all had a connection to infertility or cancer. What do we do with that privilege? For me, it was, I put it on my credit card and I moved on.
Yeah.
For Amanda Rice, it was, this is not fair.
Yeah.
Just because you decided to be a teacher instead of a hedge fund manager doesn't mean that you don't deserve a chance at a biological family after cancer.
Yes.
Because you live in a rural area and you don't have access to fertility care doesn't mean you don't deserve the information.
The information.
Yeah. So we came together and said, this is what we're doing. We're educating all women about oncofertility, but also how to be their own patient advocate. What to do when that OBGYN told me that I was being hysterical about multi-year bleeding. And I said, okay, I guess you're right.
We all do, because like you said earlier, we're kind of like, it's ingrained in us to trust these doctors, and what they say is like the standard and gold, and they know all. And until we have experiences like this, or people are talking about having experiences like this, we're finally being like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. And this doesn't feel right. And look at this or test this.
And it also allows you to know what questions you're not asking.
Yeah.
Because I think that from our educational standpoint with oncofertility, not every woman on the planet is going to need to know about oncofertility. And they're not going to need to know that their insurance companies won't cover the procedures for them until they need to know.
Right.
But knowledge is power. Just having the conversation the way we are about all of these things really just changes the stigma around it, keeps the buzz, changes the lexicon, and eventually we will all be ambassadors for these own issues to each other.
Yes.
And
well, that's what's happening.
And it won't matter.
Yeah.
It matters. And it is changing, I'm sure, from the oncologist perspective. But we're going to educate all these people to give them the information before they know they need it. We're going to fundraise for the women who don't have access to fertility preservation, and on a need-based way, fix the problem in real time, and then look at advocacy. What can a cancer survivor story change about perspective and legislation of what is qualitative, quantitative medical care? And our ultimate goal, and we said this November.
You're answering all my questions.
I know.
I don't even have to ask them.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's great.
We could edit you down, but our ultimate goal in 2017 was to put ourselves out of business. We want insurance companies to cover this. State legislation, federal legislation, public insurance. We want women to be able to make all their own choices with knowledge they know before they need to.
Yeah.
And women who have cancer in that moment to take their control and power back from this disease. Freezing your eggs is one of the first choices you make after you've been told you have cancer, you need treatment, you need to pay this, your life is in danger. These are all your steps.
Yeah. So that was one of my questions was, a couple things. So I have a personal experience, two personal experiences where that was sort of the messaging. Well, one is different than the other. The messaging was like, you have to do treatment now or you are going to die. And there was no conversation. She was a guest on this podcast as well, and she's a dear friend of mine. There was no conversation, like you were saying earlier, about her fertility. So I'm curious, like, have you seen like doctors are just so quick to rush to treatment? Maybe you're not viewing the person as a whole person. They're there to, my job is to treat you to save your life. And that's kind of my compartmentalized perspective. And I'm not thinking about you as a whole person. I mean, I think what you said is less than 50% of oncologists are sharing about fertility. Like why? And why is that so low?
I think that there are so many factors, and I am very positive, and I'm a very kind of not pessimistic but realistic person. So if I'm positive about a trend, it means a lot.
Okay.
Those things are changing. But I think that 4 things are true. I don't know if it's 4, but it feels like it'll be 4.
Okay.
Doctors are humans.
Yeah.
There was a thought that telling women about freezing their eggs when they couldn't afford it or they didn't have time. Because if you have aggressive lymphoma, you may not have time for those 2 weeks now that it takes for the cycle.
Yeah.
So to tell those women that is insult after injury and makes the whole thing worse.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of assumptions about who can and can't afford it. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of changes in stimulation for IVF on how long the process takes. In 2010, in January, mine took like 3 weeks to a month. Mm-hmm. But again, if you need to go to chemo in 10 days, they can do it now.
They can make it happen.
So to answer your actual question and to put a 4th on there, I think that it's doctors are trained to solve the problem. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you are an oncologist, you're solving the tumor problem.
Right.
If you are an REI, you're solving the infertility problem. Mm-hmm. And I think that each person who treated me and didn't say anything did not do so maliciously.
Right.
And I think that our work together here on this podcast and on the internet and beyond, it's changing.
Yeah.
And we, specifically at Chick Mission, we have panels with first-year medical students and residents.
Amazing.
Not just in the cancer space. For example, OBGYNs for female cancers, they're the first line of defense.
Right.
In terms of, breast exams and the rest. I don't know what to do with my arm. But I feel like if they know, they'll know how to bring it up to a patient. Mm-hmm. Or say, I have no conclusions about this thing you're going to get biopsied, but let's also talk about XYZ if we need to. Yeah. I don't want to scare you. It also allows people to figure out what their finances look like, what their insurance policies look like. And something that is very positive, along with doctor conversation buzz from, let's call them impassioned ambassadors, are more and more corporate partners, people you work for. Those companies are putting together fertility benefits.
I know, I've seen it.
That will cover it. Yeah. And I don't know about in your world, but where I am, so many women use that as a chip for negotiation.
Oh, yes.
Or they want to go work for the company who says, yeah, we have progeny. It works fantastically. This is how it works. It's easy to use. Mm-hmm. We care about our employees and their future. Yeah. The same way the doctors, to bring it all back, they do care about your future, but sometimes their job is to make sure you have one.
Right.
So that's why those of us on the outside of the medical industry, your job is to save the life, and my job is to think about the quality of the life on the other side, because I'm sure on your note card, AYA cancer survivors, it's over 90%.
Yeah.
90% of people diagnosed with cancer from 18 to 40, 90 plus actually, will go on to live a long, happy life. Oh. So let's give everyone the tools to build what that life looks like, even if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Plenty of women don't get what they want from their fertility journey. Yeah. And they don't even have cancer. What we're doing at Chick Mission is providing the chance to even try. Yeah. So I'm going to let you answer the question.
I just love everything you're saying. I think the educational piece is so important. I agree with you that knowledge is power. Even in my own secondary infertility journey, like I had to educate myself to know the questions to ask. So I love what you're doing in the educational component of your work and, empowering women to know how to ask the questions to bring up a concern is really important. It can be intimidating in those doctors' offices. And I imagine, especially when you're faced with cancer and you're trying to figure out saving your life and saving your fertility. One thing that stood out to me as I was preparing today is, in and of itself, freezing your eggs is a very, very hard decision. It is a decision that, for me, didn't happen overnight. For a lot of women that have been on this podcast, doesn't happen overnight. So I can't imagine what it's like to be in your shoes, be in many of the women you've worked with shoes or supported shoes, and say, you have to make this decision now. I mean, it took me years to finally pull the trigger on doing it.
So if you think about the confusion and the fear and all the feelings that come along with that decision to freeze your eggs, it's that on an accelerated timetable that it feels like you're spinning.
Yeah.
And then you add the financial piece.
Mm-hmm.
When you are worried about what your chemotherapy is going to cost, and if you need to spend many nights in a hospital and what after surgery and what will be covered by your insurance, $15,000 to $20,000 in the span of 10 days to make this decision is cruel. And it doesn't matter what you think about science or what you think about fertility, what you think about where life begins or cancer or women. Not being able to take care of a medical issue that is so emotionally based and physical based and usually not repairable because of money is cruel.
Yeah, that is.
It's not okay.
Yeah. Ugh. One of the other stats I want to talk about with you is sort of the insurance coverage, and only 18 states have on-co fertility services. So I imagine, as you're saying, one of the goals or visions for Chick Mission is to make sure every state has on-co fertility services.
And a federal bill.
And a federal bill.
Yes. I am in a weird position where my majors in college were journalism and political theory. I thought I was going to be Olivia Pope before there was an Olivia Pope. That was not my linear journey, obviously.
Yeah.
So when Chick Mission started looking at advocacy, it was very much like, okay, we can fundraise until the cows come home. But unless there's structural change in the way healthcare and government works, then we're going to be raising money for the rest of our lives and nothing's ever going to really change. It's give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, but on a much more important scale. So a little bit naively, my first advocacy day was in February 2019. Amanda and I, who knew each other for just about a year, went up to Albany to tell our stories. And I, in my head, because storytelling, I was like, oh, you look at someone who's in her 30s, you know that she could be your daughter, your granddaughter, your sister, your niece, and you'd want to help those people, right? And it should change how you look at this whole thing. And then we realized, for some people, yes, but it's also about money.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make the money argument. If I'm 45 years old, had chemotherapy, and was on tamoxifen for 6 years, which also quiets your clock in its own way, you can spend all the money you want to try and get me pregnant. That's so great that I'm covered. You're going to spend $250,000. Not me, because I don't have uterus. But you come up with an oncofertility rate ahead of time. Insurance companies cover this ahead of your treatment. Everyone saves money, including the insurance companies. And you look at the holistic human. Maybe she'll need less mental health care after cancer, knowing that this is taken care of. She will be more taxable and make more money. I don't know, but that's another way we looked at things.
Yeah.
And the point about advocacy in these 18 states is there's so many different reasons why they should do it.
Yeah.
But the real reason is because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
It is a small population. There are like 90,000 young adults who get, I'm making sure that number is right because I'm a little dyslexic. That is right. 90,000 young adults in the US are diagnosed with cancer every year. That's not a lot of people. It's a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people.
Right.
And the point is, as these laws are passed, they're for a very small, important demographic. You figure out what works, and then you find a way to build on it, potentially for IVF, for other situations. And I think that this is a learning experience, not only for patients, how to figure out what their coverage is, insurance companies, to follow their own mandates that are passed. And in each of those states, it's not everyone. it's incredibly nuanced.
Yeah.
For example, in New York State, Chick Mission is working with a wonderful legislator to work on a New York Medicaid bill. Fertility passed for privatized insurance into 2019.
Okay.
If you have Medicaid, you're not covered. So there's always more work to do.
Yeah.
In Texas, where Chick Mission was very involved in the process, and in Oklahoma, which is our most recent win, in honor of a woman who had passed away, who was an onco. She was an OB and a wonderful human from what her friends have told us. That Texas doesn't cover storage. Oklahoma doesn't cover embryos, it's eggs only. But everything is a step forward.
Yeah.
And I believe that this issue is for everyone. It is not partisan. It is not female. It is not male.
Yes.
And it's all about, I don't know, the cause and effect. It's all cause and effect. Iatrogenic infertility. Fertility caused by medical treatment.
Yeah.
I came in with the ovaries of a 15-year-old. I came out with no uterus and ovaries attached to my ribs. Why is that? Cancer.
Yeah.
Which I didn't elect to have.
Right. Right. You guys are doing such incredible work. I'd love for you to talk about the HOPE grants and what that provides to women and how women can have access to that.
Yeah. When I met Amanda and they were talking about HOPE grants, my first moment, because again, cynic, I was like, HOPE grants? And it didn't feel organic to who I am.
What is that, 5 minutes? Oh, 11:59? Okay.
Oh, shit.
We're just talking. That's okay. Thank you.
So I'll start over.
Yeah, we'll edit, of course.
Yeah, but the HOPE grant program brings immediate financial assistance to recently diagnosed patients whose cancer treatment will have immediate effect on the reproductive system. So we are currently working in 8 states across the US where women can apply through our partner clinics for full coverage, everything but medication.
Okay.
The labs, the monitoring, the anesthesia, 1 year or more of storage.
Because it all adds up.
It all adds up. So our partner clinics are really incredible and try and get us the lowest possible rate so we can help more women. It's not about a profit. It's about getting these women in, allowing them to choose a potential future family and move on.
Yeah.
To fight cancer. And in the 6 years since we've been in existence, we've helped 577 women.
It's incredible.
And the part that blows me away as a 6-year-old organization is we've pledged over $4 million now to those 577 patients alone. $4 million.
You've changed their lives.
And the lives of the future grandparents and the future kindergarten best friend. And if you look at our wonderful clinical partners and the rates, if Chick Mission had to cover rack rate for every person, we're saving families $7.3 million by the negotiations made with these wonderful physicians and with our incredible supporters who believe that let her choose.
Yes,
and
let her choose.
It's an immediate Band-Aid to an overall problem. But we've already had 7 babies born in the last 6 years, and the average age of our patient is 31.
Amazing! Wow.
And I have met some of these babies. And
we're almost out of time. I could sit here and speak with you all day. I guess my last question for you is just, what has it been like for you to be part of Chick Mission, to have had your linear life go off track and sort of wind up where you are here? And it's so, I always find it so incredible to think about like our journeys, allowing our journeys to shape what we do and who we are. I mean, I don't...
Patience for that.
Yeah. Oh my God, we could talk all day about patience. But yeah, what is it like for you to be here doing this work? I mean, life could have looked a lot different for you.
I think coming into a Chick Mission experience as a survivor who had never said out loud that she was a cancer survivor until our first gala on stage in front of 500 people.
Wow.
Because go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
It allows me to feel productive that I'm using my experiences, like we were talking about age gap friendships, for making things easier for the next generation, that women who would not get access to fertility preservation, whether it's financial or otherwise, that we're bringing that to the forefront. But truthfully, it's looking at our survivors and our volunteers and our supporters who all see motherhood, cancer, fertility, reproductive responsibility, nonprofit community, what it's done for them, because it allows them to go to the Chick Mission website and sign a letter of support that goes immediately to their state senator saying insurance companies should cover this.
Okay, how people can support and help.
You can follow us on Instagram, and you can learn a lot about that second language of cancer and fertility. And of course, see stories and fun events. If you're in New York City, our gala is coming up on October 24th, and we have our first ever marathon team. I am not a runner. If I am running, I am being chased and I'm in peril. But we have women who are running their first, second, third, fifth marathons, fundraising for Chick Mission. And we just actually launched a cheer squad moment. And for me, as the non-runner survivor, these are women who are doing what I think are a physical and a mental feat.
Yes.
And we get to take part in that by cheering them on. So to answer your actual question, the way I have found kind of quieting the clock and moving my own experience non-linearly forward is by finding a way to be active and showing up for people who are in the same waiting rooms at Sloan Kettering where I sat, and also bringing other people in to do what they do in their lives, but do it for good.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it seems silly to be like, follow us on Instagram, but you'd be surprised on what you can learn.
Yeah.
Just from other people's stories.
Yes.
If you want to have a fundraiser in your hometown, it doesn't have to be a gala. And for $7,000, that is the going average rate of one of our grants, you change someone's entire life and the future.
It's incredible. Oh my God, Tracy, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story and sharing everything you're doing with Chick Mission.
I appreciate you creating the space, and I urge everyone to continue to watch your space and find us on ours.
And we'll be forever supporting your space. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
I think it's no secret that I love the Little Words Project bracelets. I have about 6 or 7 on my arm, ones that have been given to me, ones I've bought myself. I love giving them as gifts. I think they're so inspirational. For me personally, they're nice little reminders throughout my day to have hope, to be, have strength, to be in good energy. I just love the bracelets so much. I love giving them. I love receiving them. And if you want to check them out and you want to give it as a gift or get one for yourself, you can use our code QTC for 15% off your first order. Hey guys, I'm Beth. Thank you so much for tuning in to Quiet the Clock. If you want to hear more episodes and learn more about how to dismantle societal timelines, live life on your own terms, live life fully and authentically, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Quiet the Clock Pod. You guys, I'm really excited. We just created all this amazing merch. And so if you're loving the podcast and you want to support our cause and continue to hear amazing episodes, please support us by buying some merch. I am living in these sweatshirts every day. We have a range of colors. We have hoodies, we have mugs, we have hats, we have journals. We have all of the things, and I love having them on because it's just a reminder to quiet the clock, to slow down, to let life unfold and be happy. So there's meaning and purpose behind wearing it too, which is a nice reminder. So check out our website, quiettheclock.com, to get your merch.